All right, everybody. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. Tuesday, it's time for Breakfast with Bill. We weren't here last week, so we thought we'd bring you a double dose this week. We got special guest in the building, Matt Rodgers. Matt and Bill, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Evan. Thanks for having us again back today, and all the hard work you do putting into getting us ready to run at 8 or sometimes 8:02 on Tuesday mornings as today. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
This is Matt's first go-round here in the studio, and Evan's built a new studio here over the past couple weeks that we're settling into. Matt said earlier as we were sitting here getting ready to start about all the technology and lights and everything. He said, I'm more nervous now than when I played in the horseshoe.
Yeah, there we
back
go.
at Ohio State. So that's an opportunity not many people had. Another opportunity not everybody has is to prospect on a daily basis, right? Us salespeople get to do, right? And prospecting is one of the it is probably one of the most critical, if not the most critical thing to being successful in sales. And, you know, Matt, when we work with sales teams, we see so many of them have full pipelines and they usually have great success. And then we work with others that say, well, you know, I live off the referrals or prospecting's not my thing. And the results just usually aren't there.
Yeah, prospecting is all about daily commitment. And those people that are successful do it daily. Daily doesn't necessarily mean equal, as we know. One day we might have 2 or 3 appointments. The next day we might have none. So we can ramp it up and down. But it's really that daily commitment to prospecting where we see success. And I think oftentimes it's all about that immediate gratification. So immediate gratification versus future success. And you want to talk about that?
Well, no, it's funny you mention that. I never thought of this with regard to prospecting, but you know, we've done a short video in the past on this about future orientation versus present orientation, right? And the people that have the most joy in life, the people that are happiest in life, have a future orientation where they can suffer now for something good later. They can put off the fulfillment, immediate gratification for future gratification. And I never thought about that until you mentioned it and how that relates to prospecting.
And I think immediate gratification, what comes into play there is being busy, right? I think a lot of times people are saying, let me help a client. There's a fire. There's something that I need to do right now, whether or not it's the biggest priority, whether or not they're living intentionally. I think a lot of times that feels good in the moment because you know there's not been one client yet that has said, thank goodness Matt and Bill showed up. I didn't have enough to do, right? Everyone is busy. Everyone has a lot on their plate. But funny thing is, it's prospecting a lot of times that doesn't get done. Yeah,
I just made a note when you were saying that of something I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. But I haven't always been the most disciplined prospector in the world. And the reason for it is because I hate suffering through it. I hate the roteness of sitting down and, you know, being tied to my desk for an hour at a time because we always talk about blocking time, and we're going to talk about that a little more later this morning. But I hate the idea of saying, hey, here's my hour, and I'm going to sit at my desk. I'm going to do nothing but make phone calls. I'm going to do reach outs, and I'm easily distracted. And I remember one time early in my career, but I sat down and was with at my desk, and I'm doing an expense report at like 9 a.m. And my vice president walked by me in sales, and he said, hey, what are you doing? And I said, I'm getting these expenses in because they're due today. He said, really? He said, it's revenue generating time. We take care of revenue generating activities on revenue generating time. And, you know, there's that concept for salespeople of being busy because we're in motion. But if it's revenue generating time, we need to be performing revenue generating activities. And prospecting is one of the greatest ones we could be doing.
Absolutely. And I think even when times are slow, it's a bigger trap. Let's face it, you know, there's been some difficult times for many people now in the last couple months. And I really think and I really think that being busy is a major trap. And you know, I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago, and they said, my salesperson answers the door whenever someone comes, whether it's UPS, whether it's someone coming to pick up a check. What is he doing, right? And so I think oftentimes you mentioned that revenue generating activity. All activity is not created equal. It's not. And so I think the challenge for all salespeople should be, what are the revenue generating activities that lead you to success? And that's why we're such a big fan of scorecards, and using a scorecard not as a time tracker, but as a tool that shows us where we should be spending our time.
Yeah, and what those right activities are, and we talked earlier about prospecting doesn't bring us immediate returns all the time, right? Prospecting is a lot of a grind. And as salespeople, we like things that bring us instant gratification. We like the things that bring us that instant feedback. We're not always future-oriented, where we can suffer through that hard work. And one of my favorite prospecting stories actually comes from my daughter, Bella, who is now 21. But when Bella was younger, she came home from school one day. She jumps off the bus, and she's like, Dad, we get to sell Sarah's candy for a fundraiser. And she's all excited, waving her Sarah's candy. And Sarah's, for those of you outside of Pittsburgh, it's a local chocolate tier, I guess is the word, right? And awesome, best candy you'll ever eat. If you go to sarahs.com, I guess that is an unpaid plug, but their chocolate is just fabulous. And she gets off the bus waving her chocolate order form, and she goes, "Can we go sell candy?" Like, hey, yeah, you're begging me to go sell something. I'm in. Let's go. So we start going door to door, and we go down the street and start at one of our favorite neighbors, Craig Lee. And Bella walks up to Craig, and she's like, "Mr. Lee, I'm selling chocolate for my school." And he's like, "Get up here, Bella. I love those chocolate-covered pretzels." And he, puts in a big order for whatever. And she comes running down the driveway, so excited, beaming. She goes, "Dad, I love this. I want to go into sales like you someday." And I'm like, "That's awesome. Let's go." That when we move up to the next house, and she rings the doorbell and nobody's home, and she comes down the driveway with a little less enthusiasm. We go to the third house, knock, knock, knock. They answer. She goes, "Hi, I'm Bella, and I'm selling chocolate for my school, St. Louis School, and was wondering if you'd be interested in buying some." And they said, "No, thanks, we're good," and shut the door on her. She walked down the driveway, and she goes, "I want to go home. I don't like this, Dad." And it was her first rejection, right? And as salespeople, we get that rejection. And how does that treat us? And then how do we overreact to the dopamine flow of the good one? And it's not one call. Bella wasn't as good as that first call she had, where somebody said, "Anytime you're selling chocolate, you come back to this house." And she certainly wasn't bad when she went to somebody who said, no thanks, not right now. But when we look for our self-worth in each of those calls, it's very easy to get thrown off of the game or become, too high with those highs.
Yeah, and it's really your mindset when you go into prospecting. And I think far too often salespeople go in with the mindset that I'm going to close a deal over the phone. And that's nearly impossible. So we have to think about, what is the intent? What is the goal? And really, the intent of prospecting is to move the ball forward. And if it's a meeting, fantastic. That's the ultimate goal. But it might be verifying some information. It might be getting a new piece of information. Each and every call. And we're big believers in a diversified prospecting mix. I think oftentimes when we think prospecting, a lot of salespeople go to a boiler room making 900 calls a day, and it's not necessarily that. We're big fans of a diversified mix. So what does that mean? You could talk about emails and voicemails going out 2 by 2. I think obviously emails are part of it, but handwritten note. We've seen so many countless success stories about handwritten notes. Thinking of you. Thank you for the call. Would love to get into your office. Whatever it is. Short, sweet on the letterhead. What do we have? 3 or 4 upstairs of our own that might be 5 years old. I was talking to a client the other day, and she said, I wrote a handwritten note. I didn't get the business, but I was called back out a little bit later, and the handwritten note was on her desk. And I'm not even her provider. Yeah. So think about the power of that. So diversified is definitely key.
And we see that so many times when we walk into someone's office, and we have Tellerico note cards. Some people, you like to use them to write their spouse poems on them for Christmas, which Matt has done in the past. Big spender. But we have, when we go into offices, sometimes we'll see a Tellurico note card on someone's credenza or on someone's desk. And it lives on because people don't like to throw those away. And as you mentioned, we have several of them upstairs in our little brag gallery with our client logos. And when you get that handwritten note, there's still something special about that, even more so today than in years past because of how little good mail we get. Right, the default is the email, the default is the text. So there's very little good mail that comes our way. When we open something, it's very powerful. One thing, going back to Bella's prospecting story, and where I failed her as a manager. So if you're a manager of salespeople, where I failed Bella as a leader that day, is we didn't have a plan. Right? She said, "Dad, I want to go prospect." I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's go." And we just started running up the street, knocking on every door we saw because every door looked good. Where we didn't know who was in the market. We didn't say we're going to do this for 1 hour or we're going to do this till the end of the street. No, we just started going. And as soon as that, the proverbial kick in the gut came or kick in the teeth and the no, we were done. So you have to discipline yourself too to have those goals, I think, when you enter into prospecting. Matt and I are fans of putting it on the calendar. Things that get put on the calendar tend to get done. Mm-hmm. So if we put that on the calendar and we say, I'm going to prospect from 10 to 11 today, do it. Treat that like an important hour. You treat that like a client meeting. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't walk into a client meeting and say at 10:08, you know what, I think I'm done because I have to, I need more coffee. Or I think I'm done because, I have to use the restroom. No, put it on the calendar and do it for an hour. Have that plan.
And I'll even take that a step further. And I see that we have a question, Anthony, and we can get to that in a second. But I'm a big fan of setting 2 different blocks because I think a lot of salespeople come to me and they say, "What's the perfect script? Who should I be calling? What should I be doing?" And my response usually to that is, let's just do it and we can evolve from there. Because I think oftentimes the scripting, getting perfect with the email is a rationalization or, their own stiff arm for not doing the activity. But I'm a big fan of 2 different blocks. The first block being figuring out, doing the research, who are we going to call? Mm-hmm. What vertical are we going after? What segmentation of our pipeline or CRM? Doing all that research, getting everything that you need, the person, number, email, whatever that is. So that in that second block, whether it be the second half hour, you could just go down the list and make the calls or send the notes or doing whatever you're going to do. Because I think we can get lost in research as salespeople. And that's another easy distraction.
It's a crutch.
To never get it done. So for all of those people out there that want the perfect script, there isn't one. I found myself last night even looking at YouTube and various things about prospecting, cold calling, all that, and you're going to find everything under the sun. And so I would say there is no perfect script. I think the perfect script is just doing it, having a conversation, asking open-ended questions, and not trying to make the sale, not trying to do anything other than engage in conversation initially.
Yeah, and we talk about those advanced discussions where we can advance the database and advance our understanding, advance the relationship. So whenever that's happening in a call, that's good, right? Think of advanced discussions. That's any discussion that advances the database, so we're learning or gathering information, or that is advancing our relationship and we're learning about the other. We're going to take a quick pause and address Anthony's question. Anthony, thanks for the question. First of all, I don't know if I do keep my cool, but if you're insinuating that I do, thank you. One of the ways you keep your cool, I think, as a salesperson is by being authentic, right, and trusting process. Matt's a big fan of always saying how when we trust the process, we get muscle memory. So we know the questions we want to ask. We know what we're trying to accomplish, right? And we're not trying to go for a close and a sale with every breath. We're just trying to engage and connect with people. And the more we do that, the more we stay in the moment and stay comfortable with someone, knowing that, one of the things Matt has written on his whiteboard I love, it says, a great question's never the wrong answer, right? Mm-hmm. So when we can stay in the moment and know that we're just going to advance this by learning and have this desire to learn versus this desire to manipulate, it's a lot easier to stay cool because I have no agenda, right? When I'm just there to learn and I'm there to connect with somebody and I'm there to discover more and more, I mean, for me, I can do that all day. I can talk all day. Thank God it's the only gift I have. Thank God I have a gift. But, I can just connect and feel and have a desire to learn more about the individual and more about the situation. When you have an agenda to push and our quota becomes their problem to solve, then we tend to lose our cool because we need certain outcomes. The other way you keep your cool is by having a full pipeline, by having enough to do. Right? When you don't have enough to do and you don't have enough in your pipeline, you don't have enough on your activity list, you start gripping everything real tight, right? And you start white knuckling it. And you think about situations where we can white knuckle it in life: driving, playing golf, right? Whatever it might be. None of those things work. Whenever we start white knuckling life, things go badly. When we put too much pressure and tension on ourselves, when we're nice and loose, we have a nice loose grip on the wheel, nice loose grip on the golf club, great things can happen. And we only have that ability to have a loose grip on our pipeline or on our sales activities when we have enough to do.
I agree. To follow up, Anthony, on Bill's comments, I believe process is freeing. So the more we can follow process, the better off we're going to be. Another favorite topic of mine I talk a lot about is task clarity. That when we have task clarity and knowing what to do, not just a goal, but we know prescriptively how to get to that goal with what activities. Again, the revenue generating activities versus the other activities, or just being busy. We can put our head down and we can do the next right thing each and every day. And it's simplistic, right? But I think the magic really happens in the consistency which you can do that each and every day. Do you lose focus, after winning the morning? I think you were talking about the other day. What can you do to win the morning? What can you do to win the afternoon, which will win the day? How many of us can string a couple good hours together, but lose focus? Right. And so I think it's
guilty as charged, I think, on that one. Yeah.
I think that's why I was looking at you. No, but it's just it's process and it's consistency to following that process. Not when the prospects like you, not when it's easy, not when you remember. The real magic happens in that mental toughness to be consistent.
Amen. And what can we learn from Bella and Sarah's Candy and her poor, bad sales manager of a father? Is we had no plan, we just ran out, right? We got excited, something happened in the day. In her case, somebody handed her an order form that she was excited about because, if she won, she got like a speaker. So there was that spiff that she was focused on that motivated her behavior. There was no goal. We weren't going to do it for an hour. We didn't say we were going to get to the end of the street. We need those things. We didn't plan our time. We didn't say we were going to do it for 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week. We just ran out. And, you get a quick dopamine hit when you do that, and that's great. But as soon as adversity comes our way, we might not be able to keep it going and maintain that momentum. Evan, it looks like we have another question. Can you help us with that one?
Yeah, we got Jesse Gary watching from LinkedIn said, "What is your suggestion to reset or refocus when that happens?"
I think when you said that in that question, Jesse, is when we lose our focus or when we get off topic or we're into prospecting and something bad happens. As with anything, I think the easiest way to reset and refocus is to breathe. Like, as crazy as that sounds, when we get too tight, when bad things start happening, usually we're not breathing. So as simple as it sounds, start to breathe. But if you need to have that reset, it's like the computer when you reboot it. Reboot yourself. Do what's good for you. I need coffee. Get up, go get yourself a cup of coffee, come back, regroup, settle yourself. If you're sitting, maybe you want to stand. I'm a big fan of making phone calls and having conversations while I'm standing. I feel more animated. Actually, today, Matt and I are sitting at a stand-up table, right? Which just being higher, I think, gives me more energy versus sitting down. Like we normally would be lower in seats. So put yourself in a physical position that allows you to focus, Jesse. But hit that reboot, get up, take a quick walk, or go back to like a practice swing. Go back into your rhythm. And what is that? That's calling somebody that you can have a connection with. So if you feel you're in a rut, if you're making 20 calls in a row and nobody wants to talk to you, call somebody that is safe, almost as a practice swing. Call a good customer, a good client, call a friend, call your coach or mentor, call somebody to let you get back in that right mindset and let you connect versus keep, being in the bad place.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And Jesse, I think you answered it. We just got another response. But for those people that might find themselves, their calendar owning them throughout the day, or not winning that morning or not winning that afternoon, I think it's really important to have a couple specific points in your day to just pause and analyze and think about what's been going on. For me, it's in the morning, at lunch, and at the end of the day. And it just might be, what did I accomplish, or what's going on right now? What is important? Really getting that priority, the prioritization back in my day, because it's easy to come in and have 90 emails and everything I wanted to accomplish or what I thought was important, coming into work that day, that gets rearranged. So I think having those moments throughout your day are really, really important to live intentionally and to have intentionality, not only as a human being, but, in sales.
Amen. Yeah, it's a great point. And, Matt talked earlier about task clarity. I think task clarity is important. Matt mentioned, knowing what prospecting means for you. We have a lot of great clients, and we have clients that go from commodity sales to very complex sales, professional services. It's different for all of us, right? It's different for each of those fields, what good prospecting looks like. For example, if you're an accountant, you're not going to make too many cold calls, right? But that doesn't mean we don't have to prospect. So what does prospecting look like for you in that moment? And having task clarity on what your good prospecting looks like. And for example, if you're in professional services, you might not be cold calling, but you should have a network that you can reach out to, check in on how you doing, how's things moving, how can I help? We ought to talk, right? Things that are just connectedness. So, and it might be sending out 5 handwritten notes in a day. We Matt and I and our planners, we track things. And one of the things we track throughout the week is who do I need to send a thank you to, right? So when something comes up, I have a little column in mind that says thank yous. I'll jot down a note, and I want to make sure I get a handwritten note out to somebody that does something nice for me, or that's an extraordinary interaction, or something that was kind. So look for ways to prospect that are not traditional. It doesn't have to just be an hour of cold calling every day. Think of people that you have interactions with. Think of people that come into your mind. Send them a note. If that's an email, fine. If it's a handwritten note, great. Depending on the situation, one's more appropriate than the other. But, be connected.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Bill, because I think oftentimes, I mentioned before cold calling in the boiler room, but we don't have to make it difficult on ourselves. There are a lot of ways and segments in our pipeline that we can reach out to. And one of the biggest ones that I feel people miss out on are gaining referrals and how important referrals can be. It's warm. So you want to talk about how we believe gaining referral works?
Sure. And maybe if anybody's interested on asking for referrals, let us know. And we could do another Breakfast with Bill on that. But, quickly, we think that when things are going well is a great time to ask for a referral, when it's going well for them. Oftentimes people say there's no better time to ask for a referral than when somebody says yes to you. I don't necessarily buy into that at the beginning of a relationship, because that's putting my needs ahead of theirs. So somebody says, yeah, we'll sign up with you. You're at the contract, whatever. And you're like, hey, who do you know? Or can you refer me to your friends? We haven't earned trust yet. I think when we're working with clients and we ask them how we're doing, if they say we're doing a great job, I'm like, never been better. We love you. Things are great. Great. Who's the one person in your network you think we could help? That's the best way to ask for a referral, right? Who's the one person in your network you think we can help? And people will give you feedback versus if there's ever anyone. One of my clients who I love, Mike mentioned to me one day, he's like, yeah, the way we ask for referrals now is we leave, and as we're getting in our car, as we're walking out in the parking lot, about to get in our car, we open the door and we yell back at the door, hey, by the way, if there's ever anyone that you think we could help, let us know. And they drive away. And, he said, I wonder why we're not getting referrals. So be intentional with that as well. And if anybody's interested in talking about referrals, we can do that in a future session. As we come up here on the bottom of the hour, we want to be mindful of everybody's time. A couple takeaways, things to think about, right? This all gets easier when we buy into a core foundational belief that sales is something we do for somebody, not to somebody, right? If we can own that and we go out into our day knowing that today I'm going to help someone else. It's an incredible blessing we have as salespeople, where we get to impact others' lives in a very positive way. We get to help other people solve problems that may be important to them, and in some cases they may be just such a nuisance that they don't want to have to deal with them. But when we can put the other first, when we don't let our quota get in the way of having a good, meaningful, authentic conversation, when we remember that sales is something we're doing for somebody, not to somebody, we can have incredible impact. We can lessen our stress. We have great freedom, and we can go have great days. So, Matt, thanks as always. Appreciate you and all that you do. Thanks for joining me on a Tuesday morning here with Breakfast with Bill. Thank you all, and hopefully you got something out of this. If we can help you in any way in the days and weeks ahead, please feel free to shoot us a note. And as always, God bless. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.